So, how was your experience with an easy sitting pose? How did you find it? There is no right or wrong answer. So, when we were in an easy sitting pose, we noticed that it was much easier to breathe. We felt much freer to breathe. And I want to spend more time talking about breath. So here's something that you need to know about the yogic breath. There's different styles, different techniques, a lot to learn about, but specifically for this course, we're going to be focused, we're going to learn, and we're going to practice a breath that's called a warrior breath with the Sanskrit named Ujjayi Breath. So we're going to practice it. Remember, we're building one thing on top of the other. So find your easy sitting pose. And by the way, one thing that I forgot to mention is that you can use your blocks here. And if you have super tight hips, and this is as high as you can go, you can use your blocks to rest your knees. So you can set it to any height and you can support your knees with your blocks. So find your easy sitting pose. Roll back your shoulders. Take a moment here to connect with your breath. Notice how you're breathing. Notice how you're using your nose or maybe your mouth to breathe in. Notice whether the breath is easy, whether it's shallow or deep, whether you feel it in your belly, maybe you feel it in your chest. Take a few more breaths. And open your eyes if you had them closed. So, this is your normal breath. The breath that I'm going to teach you, the warrior breath, is a special type of breath. It has a number of different benefits, and as it relates to our yoga practice, there's two primary reasons why we want to learn and practice it. Number one, this breath goes exceptionally well with the warm-up routine that we're going to be learning in a couple of days. This breath tends to warm up your blood as you are preparing for the yoga practice. So it has a very rejuvenating, warming effect on the body. Great breath to practice as you're warming up for the practice. And not just for the yoga practice, but for any type of physical activity. Number two, this breath has a very distinct sound that you can hear inside your head. And the reason why this is important is because we can use this sound to bring our attention, which will invariably fly away during our yoga practice into all kinds of things. And we can bring it back and we can focus our attention on a distinctive sound that this breath produces. So, in other words, it helps us focus better during our yoga practice. And finally, number three, this is more of an anatomical or a health benefit. By practicing this breath, you're actually going to teach your body to breathe more efficiently. You're going to engage all kinds of secondary muscles in your chest that will make your breath much more effective. You're actually going to be using less energy to take in more air. Isn't it great? Anyways, let's learn about that breath. So the best way to learn this breath is to imagine that you have a mirror, a handheld mirror in your hand, and you're trying to fog it with the breath coming out of your mouth. So you're going to try to do something like essentially trying to fog up the mirror. Notice that when you're doing this, there's this HA sound that comes out somewhere from this area of your throat. So that's the sound, that's the distinctive sound that I was talking about, that you can hear inside of your head, that you can focus on. So do this a couple of times. trying to fog up the mirror. Now, we're gonna close our mouth and we're gonna do the same thing, but exhaling through the nose. We're gonna look something like this. So I can still feel the air coming out of my nose, blowing into my virtual imagined mirror, except that my throat makes this distinctive HA sound. So give it a try. Let's practice it for a couple of rounds. Essentially what you're doing is you're constricting your throat passages here, and you're funneling the air from inside of your lungs through that constrained passage, which makes that additional sound, and you're blowing it out through the nose. So that was the exhalation part. This is where we were trying to fog up the mirror. But we obviously are breathing in and out. So the in part, or the inhalation part, also has to make that distinctive sound. Essentially, you want to have this distinctive HA sound both as you're breathing out and as you're breathing in. So we talked about breathing out, or with our mouth closed and nose open. Now let's do the same thing with our mouth closed and our nose. We're gonna breathe in. Obviously, when you try to do this, you don't see that distinctive sound, you don't hear that distinctive sound. So the way to bring back or introduce that distinctive hissing HA sound into the inhalation is to imagine that you have a hole in your throat right about here. So when you're breathing in with your mouth closed and your nose open, it's almost like you're trying to breathe in through this hole in your throat. Give it a try. It feels kind of weird, right? But you can see how doing that, constricting your throat on the inhalation as well, you can produce that distinctive sound. So give it a few more rounds, give it a focus on the inhalations. Excellent. And now let's combine both the inhalation and the exhalation at the same time. So your goal here is to generate that distinctive HA sound at the same time as you're inhaling and exhaling. Let's give it a try. Now notice what's happening here. You probably feel that your chest is like something uncomfortable is happening here. You've got weird tension in the muscles that are running from your chest, maybe all the way down into your shoulder blades, that you may be getting a little bit lightheaded, and maybe there's this feeling of warmth that's generated in your throat. This is all perfectly fine. This is your body reacting to this different type of a breath that you don't really use on a daily basis. And this is also a good indicator that yoga is not just a physical exercise, but it also has a very powerful breathing component built into it, which we're going to combine into our practice over the next 14 days. So let's give it another round of practice, and we're going to conclude this lesson. So let's make sure that we are sitting in our easy sitting pose, hands on our knees, maybe palms facing up. Roll back your shoulders, lift up your chin, bring your chin back, nice and straight spine. And let's practice our warrior breath. Remember, we're inhaling with an HA sound, and we're exhaling with an HA sound. One last breath. Let everything go, breathe normally. Notice the contrast between your normal breath and the warrior breath. Now this breath takes practice. Just like anything in yoga, the more we practice, the easier it gets. It will also start developing your auxiliary muscles of breathing, which you're going to get a little bit more later into. But for now, just remember, yoga, warming up, we use the warrior breath. That concludes our lesson, and I invite you to practice the warrior breath on your own, and that's actually going to be one of the pieces of homework for today.